Hi, this is Nick on the 9th of August, continuing this week's theme of why I love this book, which I know you can't read because the title's the wrong way round, A Course in Miracles. I'm just picking out some of the key themes that have kind of touched me deeply and inspired me and helped me on my journey and are still helping me every day on my journey. So the thought today is about the idea of defencelessness. You know, growing up, I thought my way of kind of being grown up and being sensible was to build lots of defences, you know, not to let myself get hurt. Well, I think the honest way of looking at it would be, I think I felt very hurt, very very wounded by a lot of things that went on in my growing up. So my response to that was to build a lot of defences so that people couldn't hurt me anymore. And I guess by the time I kind of reached a reasonable degree of adulthood, I probably felt like I had, you know, at least energetic, if not physical, kind of suits of armour on. It's like, you won't get me, you won't hurt me. But in a way, I was kind of very withdrawn from life. You know, my defences kept me, you know, distant in a way. And, you know, lesson 153, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but lesson 153 in A Course in Miracles says, in my defencelessness, my safety lies. In my defencelessness, my safety lies. So what I found initially incredibly challenging was the idea of being defenceless. It's like, well, that's mad. You know, if you don't have defences, you're just going to get walked over, you're going to get crushed or defeated or blown up or whatever, you know, and you've only got to look around at the world and nuclear arms and, you know, locks and defences, you know, it's big industry, defence. But obviously, you know, to believe you need to defend means you believe you can be attacked. And that's part of the whole thinking of A Course in Miracles, is the belief in attack and that there is genuinely something to be afraid of, so therefore you need to defend against it. And what A Course in Miracles is teaching is to have a new relationship with fear, and ultimately to realise the ego believes in fear, the ego is based on fear. And there is another part of our mind and another part of who we are that isn't fearful and that is actually invulnerable. And this is the other side. The Course teaches quite a bit about invulnerability. And that's not becoming invulnerable by having massive defences, but is recognising that, I guess, ultimately the true spirit of who we are does not need defences. It cannot be harmed, it cannot be hurt, it cannot be broken. It doesn't die. So therefore it doesn't need defending. But most of us, I'll own this for myself, I've had so many layers of defence, and I still do have, that my interest is of becoming increasingly defenceless in my life, of dismantling the defences that I spent decades building up earlier in my life, so that I can feel less afraid and more open, if you like, and therefore more loving and more creative and more in contact with people. But I still experience a lot of fear. But, you know, from A Course in Miracles perspective, you know, it's wanting to recognise and then dissolve my fears, rather than going, well, I'm afraid, so therefore I'll put up a defence there. And I'm, you know, my emerging work over the last couple of years has been very much about leadership, and I'm fascinated by what I would call more defenceless leaders. Because so much of what we think of leadership is about leadership with massive defences, leadership who make threats and who are divisive and who are angry and want to punish, basically coming out of fear. And I'm fascinated by leadership that is about being defenceless, that's about moving towards the things that we fear and joining with the things that we fear, rather than putting up big barriers against them. So this is a massive area, but I just wanted to touch on this point today about defencelessness, and that the Course in Miracles is about inviting us to go on a journey of dissolving our defences so that we can become truly invulnerable. And in the Course it talks about how what a price our defences kind of wreak on us. You know, we pay a massive price for our defences that I think we don't even realise that we pay. You know, it talks about us actually being a slave to our own defences, because where we're afraid, we're put in defences, and where defences have to be put in place, we then become a slave to defending ourselves, and it becomes almost like a full-time job in defending ourselves. So I love this idea of becoming increasingly defenceless. And that's ultimately where our safety, as the lesson says, in my defencelessness, my safety lies. And that's certainly the direction I'm headed in my life, is how do I become increasingly defenceless so that I can feel safer and safer in a world that generally doesn't feel that safe. So that's today's thought on the course. Hope it's been interesting. Love to hear your thoughts. God bless. Have a good day. Bye-bye.